Hello and most welcome to 1968 of the series. We will today continue with what we started in 1965. The article by Marcello Newall, The Roman Arena Overturned, Revelation 14:9 to 11, as God's wrath in history. There's God's wrath in history. Last time we took an excessive look into how spectres goes into spectacle. How there is an exchange constantly. And this exchange can take different dimensions, different forms. We also had incredibly interesting mathematics coming from quantum maths. How we divide 7 by 12 and get 5. And once more we have 7, 7, 7. 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls. 7 bowls. The 7 seals have general elements like sword, famine, and plague. They have features in themselves, and that reminds us about fractality. Fractality is the true face of the world. This is how we understand how reality is working. Every singular little part contains the bigger parts. It's scaleless. And there is a very good description here at the end of the left column of 462. And the message which proceed in logical linear fashion, but rather a mosaic and kaleidoscopic collage of clusters of images and symbols, which slowly move towards the final victory of Christ over all evil. The kaleidoscope is a very good depiction of a system where the observer is involved. The kaleidoscopic feature is the different constellation of clusters you get. It is constantly changing. It's never the same, and a small twist on the elbow or on the hand will manage to change completely the configuration. I would say it even goes to a single change of thinking will amount to a different world. Your attitude, your disposition come into the picture. There you have the kaleidoscope actually. Go up. You just missed it there. There it is. So it's a sort of device that is very good for understanding how the observer the sensitivity of the observer comes into the constellation, or the equation, if you prefer. And that eases up. Yeah. This is what happens with a single twist, a little movement of the hand, something to do with your eyes, your focus with the eyes. Miniature things changes everything. Immediately, in a second. We are here in this reality. And in the last episode, the ignoring of physics as I would say, the mark of the devil, because it means that faith is not real. It's not true. It is not of this world anymore. It is otherworldly. It is Tegmarkian or Hueveresian, no longer participating in this very world. It needs to be in the world, needs to participate. And that's the only way to destroy faith. There is no other way. There's no other entryway or segue into destruction and faith than the split between reason and faith and reason and belief. There was also a mention of an eye for an eye, the lex talionis, and how the whole stage would be the entire world and the much great arena of devastating judgments on the earth, and the spectator placed in their seats of honor would be Christ and his angels. So very short, the only way of destroy faith and religion is by putting a splinter in between what one would call physics, material world, and something that is, why not the black box of the internal world that Ludwig Wittgenstein dissolves? That will do the trick as well, quite neatly. Then you are no longer in this world. You are no longer participating. You are absent. We can continue where we left off, 464. 464, please. This idea of a Christian reversal of the Roman Colosseum is also present to a certain degree in the church father Tertullian. Who denounced the Roman games and talked of alias spectacula. Alias spectacula.
Spectacular.
Spectacula. A different form of spectacle and blood sport in which Christ would take vengeance on his enemies. Vengeance on his enemies.
Vengeance.
Vengeance! While Tertullian clearly saw this reversal as taking place in eternity and not in history, as I argue here, it is interesting how this idea was clearly present in the period of the early church. Of the early church. Of the early church. In this regard, the story of the martyrdom of Perpetua et Felicitatis. I think now it could be that you are not muted. If you try to mute yourself. Seems to be doing wrong. Is it better now? Do you solve that problem? I argue here it's interesting how this idea was clearly present in the period of the early church. In this regard, the story of the martyrdom of Perpetua and Felicity, together with other martyrs, were led out into the Roman amphitheater before a ferocious crowd of jeering spectators and local officials, spectators, jeering. Ooh. And local officials. Here in the Roman arena of Carthage, wild animals such as a leopard, bear, boar,
Enough,
and
enough.
even a violent heifer are unleashed, damnatio ad bestia,
Bestia.
against the Christians, who are also scourged,
Scorched.
scourged, and finally are killed
Yeah.
at the center of the amphitheater by a gladiator with a sword. With a sword.
Oh,
With a sword. Likewise, the martyrdoms of both Polycarp and Ignatius of Antioch are other examples of the mockery and suffering that early Christians endured in the Roman arena and predate Perpetua and Felicitas. Polycarp's martyrdom, in particular in the stadium of Smyrna, dated around the beginning to the mid-2nd century, highlights the great pressure Christians had to withstand in order not to renounce their faith in the Roman arena. The Roman arena. Arena. Furthermore, in Polycarp's death, we also see the concept of a reversal of roles. A reversal of roles. Roles. After being accused of being an atheist, the Bishop of Smyrna accuses the crowd of being true atheists. True atheists.
Yummy.
And after being treated with death by fire, he warns of the greater punishment to come, to come, to come. No doubt John the Seer's apocalyptic vision was a way both to the promised, the vindication of suffering Christians, but also to warn them against apostasy in periods of violent persecution and compromise during peaceful coexistence. Coexistence. Further considerations. Another detail which favors a symbolic understanding of Revelation 14:9 to 11 as a description of the following plagues is the fact that we are told that the beast worshippers are tormented in the presence of the holy angels and the Lamb. Lamb. If this were an actual depiction of the final eschatological state, it would appear to be in direct contradiction of Paul's description of the final judgment of the wicked in 2 Thessalonians 1:9, where the apostle underlines how they will suffer the punishment of eternal destruction away from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his might, of his might, of his might. While it is possible to translate this verse as destruction, proceeding from the Lord's presence, the most likely translation appears to be
that the unrighteous are excluded from Christ's presence. From Christ's presence. As the word apo is often translated as separated from, and various parables also seem to suggest exclusion from God's presence. In fact, nowhere in the New Testament are we ever specifically told that the wicked will be tormented in God's presence forever. Forever. Forever.
Forever.
Moreover, the concept of the unrighteous being tormented before Christ for eternity also contrasts with all other images we have of peace and joy around God's and Christ's throne in Revelation. Similarly, the consistent theme of Scripture in both the Old and New Testament is that the unrighteous will be excluded by God and will not see his face. See his face! No! No! Finally, in Revelation 14:9-11, the actual lake of fire, which is used to symbolize the second death, is never mentioned. Instead, the language of Revelation 14:9-11 appears to be strikingly similar to the historic judgment against Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis. In Genesis, as is the rising of smoke, which signified its destruction. Its destruction. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he looked, and behold, the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace, of a furnace. Oh, smoke, burning. Smoking, burning. The concept of eternally ascending smoke, likewise, utilizes the important Old Testament image of Isa. For the Lord has his day of vengeance, a year of recompense for the cause of Zion, and the streams of Edom shall be turned into a pitch, and her soil into sulfur. 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 Her land shall become burning pitch. Night and day it shall not be quenched. Its smoke shall go up forever, ever, ever. Forever and ever. From generation to generation it shall lie waste. None shall pass through it forever and ever. Forever and ever. Here the idea of smoke rising forever in the context of the judgment of Edom indicates the finality of the judgment and a symbolic everlasting memorial as opposed to an eternally ongoing process, and is used both in 1411 and in regard to the destruction of Babylon in 1903. 1903! Like much of Revelation, John of Patmos has prophetically synthesized various Old Testament passages in order to create a collage of apocalyptic images which symbolically convey the retribution of the followers of the beast. We see this also in the bowl judgments in chapter 16. Chapter 16. Which mimic fairly closely the judgments of Egypt in Exodus. Exodus. Exodus.
Exodus.
Exodus. For John now, at the end of the age, the totality of God's wrath has appeared in this final series of judgments as a vindication of God's holiness and the suffering of the righteous. The suffering of the righteous. The righteous. Conclusion. Conclusions. On a practical level, my interpretation of these verses and their immediate context should affect contemporary Christian readers in various ways. Firstly, since Revelation 14:9 to 11 is considered perhaps the strongest pillar in the New Testament for the doctrine of the eternal conscious torment of the wicked, viewing it as symbolically occurring in history should make one question the scriptural basis for this doctrine.
Doctrine.
Particularly as it has been traditionally conceived. Secondly, the dramatic nature of John's vision should, like it did for his readers in the primitive Christian community, lead contemporary Christians to question their own potential involvement in what Revelation understands as the beast and its anti-Christian worldview and actions. While at the same time encouraging suffering Christians not to compromise with its system of idolatry, injustice, and oppression. By depicting God's judgments against the beast and its adherents as occurring within history, John helps to show the reconquest of the present creation, in which believers must also conquer Nikao, evil through their self-sacrificial witness and faith in the Lamb. On the part of God against the forces of darkness which currently enslave it, and thus counters a kind of otherworldly eschatology which abandons the earth and history to destruction. Destruction. Ultimately, Revelation depicts the hope of a renewed earth and cosmos, cleansed from all sin and evil, in which the kingdoms of the world have been transformed into the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ. John therefore seeks to highlight the awesome power and justice of God in this present age, not just in the distant future, as a source of encouragement or staying power for those suffering from the faithful witness, and as a warning not to compromise with the evil system of the beast.
Ouch, ouch.
Oops! It's time to look out. Do not compromise. This is why John the Seer, summarizing the spiritual significance of Revelation 14:6 to 12, underlies that his message calls for patient endurance on the part of the people of God who keep his commands and remain faithful to Jesus. 14:12 to 3:10, and there we put pause. 1968. Faithful to Jesus.
Let me see. And we say last word was 310. Oh, what was
Remain faithful to Jesus.
okay. A bit long. Remain faithful to Jesus. Forces.
Nikao. Go to page 464. It's the second paragraph on 464, if you may, Kalle.
Yes, here. 464.
That's the second column. That's the second paragraph on the first column.
Voila.
That's about 7 lines down. So while Tertullian clearly saw this reversal as taking place in eternity and not in history, as I argue here. It is interesting how this idea was clearly present in the period of the early church. This is very pertinent. There is no opposition, I would say, in history and eternity. It's history in eternity and eternity in history. Actually, without eternity, we cannot have history. You can see the fractality of time as we went through with Susie Frobel, for instance. It's a good example how the punctuality of time, the small temporal segments, also equals the eternity of reality, of time. For every time you, so to speak, zoom in on one time segment, you find more and more and more. It becomes more and more complex. And for every zooming in, every iteration, which is actually called in fractality, you get the whole also. The whole is involved in the lower domains. It does not disappear. Rather, it gets more and more complex for each level you go down. And each level will contain the whole thing, the totality of everything. So the small in the big and the big in the small, they go hand in hand. So we can go to 466. If you go a couple of lines, it's a terribly long sentence here. Secondly, the dramatic nature of John's vision should, like it did for his readers in the primitive Christian community, lead contemporary Christians to question their own potential involvement in what Revelation understands as the beast and its anti-Christian worldview and actions, while at the same time encouraging suffering Christians not to compromise with its system of idolatry, injustice, and oppression. Indeed, what is the Antichrist? What is storing away religion today? As was hinted in, is the division between history and eternity. The illusion of a division is also the illusion of the division between inner and outer, where they no longer interweave or go into each other. They are no longer active into each other. And this is, of course, also the divide between something that is physics and something that should be transcendental or mental. That is the deed of the devil. That's the only thing that is undermining Christianity. Nothing else. It's the attack from within, so to speak, maybe from within thinking itself. Behold, there are the deeds of the devil, the Antichrist, the beast. And it will close the gates to heaven for us to enter into that realm. And further down there, it is also important to conquer, in which believers must also conquer Nikao, evil, through their self-sacrificial witness and faith in the Lamb. The faith in the Lamb, I would say, is the understanding of how all oppositions come together. That's the Lamb and the Lion, which we have mentioned a couple of times before. In that, we can lead to peace and understanding and a wider picture, so to speak, if you like. And we can go to the next column because there is only one paragraph. There are two paragraphs. The next column, same paragraph. And not in some distant future, as a source of encouragement, of staying power for those suffering for their faithful witnesses, and as a warning not to compromise with the evil system of the beast. Of the beast. The evil system of the beast is the illusion of a system. We often call it materialism, reductionism. The one and only reason for the demise of Christianity today, which makes it impossible even from within to remain faithful and believing, because you are yourself divided. You have been cut into two. That will be healed and can be healed and will be healed, I would even say. That is constantly within the possibilities, because we are fettered. I like that word. We are fettered by explanations, preempted explanations. These explanations cover the truth, and they explain in such a way that we get confused, we get muddled, we get into the delusion, and we start pointing where there is nothing to point at, and even the pointing gesture no longer meaning anything. We continue. It is like if we couldn't stop, we cannot stop. It's become automaticated. When we are automaticated, we no longer have free will. We no longer have spirituality. And we cannot reach the higher realms of God, the lamb and the lion. Roar. We're neither soft nor meek, nor hard and attacking. Both strands are needed for there to be an inner soul. There needed also the outside to make the soul exist, and the soul, as the kaleidoscope showed, the soul, the observer, is needed for that to be a reality. A twist of the kaleidoscope gives a different world. This is exactly how the world comes forth in the quantum mechanical experimentation. It's always depended on the twist, and it doesn't make any difference. It's even better that the material of the kaleidoscope also are fractal. Fractal in the sense that they constantly changes with the little twists of the eye, even with the retina being differently, or how you fathom, how you think. It is your knowledge, your understanding that puts you in a position. The understanding, your facts, if you like, your facts of a divided world, those explanations hinders you from seeing the truth or the reality, maybe. Kalle, more than welcome to join.
Thank you. Let's check out. Let me speak about podcast. Here we have Polycarp. Let's look up. He was the disciple of John, the evangelist, if I remember correctly. He was a bishop of Smyrna. He was burned at the stake. Not at the Colosseum.
Poor guy.
Yes, so here he was disciple of John the Apostle. So it's very fitting, so to say, to speak about him in this context, since he was the student of John the Seer, the one who brought the book of Revelation. And he was threatened with death by fire, and that's interesting because we are speaking about fire. Is it historical fire or is it eternal fire?
Oh yeah.
I want to return to the same thing that you were speaking about. So it was Tertullian, the 3rd century church father.
Oh yeah, Tertullian, yeah.
The same phrase. While Tertullian clearly saw this reversal as taking place in eternity and not in history. So Tertullian prefers the eternal interpretation, while Marcello Newall prefers the historical interpretation. And how do we know? We both, you and I, we prefer both and. And how do we know what is the correct interpretation then? Yeah, well, we can check out what the physics says about, for instance, the Nobel Prize winners of 2032. It was about, and then global reality was proved to be correct. Let me see, global reality 1, 2, physics. I don't know if you find something on this.
I can tell from my own
Yes,
words.
yes.
Global reality is that no local reality. The idea of that there will be a time that is historical only, that is proven to be wrong. That is the global time. There is no beginning in this sense of a big bang. There is no end as in a big crunch. And those tendencies gives for historicity, as I usually call it. And it will mean that everything is determined. There is no meaning. There is no God. One will follow the second and the third. A will be before B and so on. You know the drill.
Would it be possible to affirm that the quantum physics Nobel Prize of 2002 proved that the idea of lex talion is correct? That is, punishment is both historical and eternal.
Yeah, of course, because historicity doesn't really exist like that. It can only exist if you have eternity. All those things that Newell and all the others, Bauckham, is coming from Newton. The divide between materialism and psyche, that's the devil. That's the only thing that bothers Christianity. Christianity don't really have any problems with anything else. There are no longer any Romans. Those days are gone. And of course, this divide made a lot more powerful work than ever the Romans could do. Christianity will be brought to extinction completely.
Yes. And then let me see this. I found this. Let me see, Joy. So he says like this: the concept of the unrighteous being tormented before Christ for eternity also contrasts with all the other images we have of peace and joy around God's and Christ's throne in Revelation. I don't know if this doesn't really exclude the idea that they can be tormented at the same time.
Yeah, sure.
If you see with, because they would not be at the same level.
No.
So it's like there. Let's imagine ideally speaking, for the Roman crowd who was sitting in the Colosseum, they
Yes.
would have preferred to have the torment of the criminals postponed and prolonged. And that
Yeah.
was also the idea of the crucifixion, that it
Oh,
was
yeah.
to be so long as possible. And at the same time, Christ, or in this case the emperors, they would still be happy. It would not affect their happiness.
No, 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 no.
I know this sounds a little bit macabre, but I think it's for our tastes. But I don't know. Why would it exclude? If we take this to the extreme conclusion, if Christ and angels are only looking it for a moment, they would be looking happy. Would not the happiness prolong if the suffering and the punishment would be also eternal?
No, it wouldn't prolong because it would make it possible for it to end. Because historicity is only possible with eternity. That's how it works.
And then let me take in organization last thing. This is about Edom. This is supposedly a proof that these are only exaggerations, so to say, because Edom is there is no smoke there still, because it says the punishment of Edom will be forever and ever.
Yeah.
But this, according to me, is an archaeological question. So what would archaeologists say? How is the land of Edom today? I don't know. I'm not done.
No.
It depends. I don't know even if they have located it. It's a difficult question, but it's not an easy question. You need actually to. It could be true. We don't know. Only a biblical archaeologist can answer this question, and I know don't have any confidence.
I would be generous to say yes. I would be generous to say yes. There's also another thing I was thinking of. This talk, even from the devishly infused Christians, said, quantum mechanics was a physical exploration or a physical discovery. No, it's a spiritual discovery. And so it was seen both from Schrödinger and Bohr. It's horrible to say that. The biggest spiritual discovery ever is called just a physical. And thereby you get another explanation and you will be sort of gone even more into the beast. So look out for that. It's a spiritual revelation, nothing else. There are no physical separated from mind. The observer is there. So quantum mechanics proves that the observer is important. Is the observer material? No. What was going to discover is it that? It's a spiritual one. And the most important you can ever have.
We could end this by looking at this image of Polycarp.
Good old Polycarp from Boeotia.
His name means many fruits.
Polycarpus. Yeah, see, Polycarp.
Disciple of John. Died in Smyrna.
I've been there. It's a beautiful city. Well, thank you very much, Kalle Lunda, for your excellent comments. Thank you, everyone, for participating and listening in. Sorry about the initial bad sound. I hope it improved. Bye-bye for now and have a beautiful day.